Good morning. I'd like to call the November 2017 Committee on Accreditation meeting to order. Will the secretary call the roll?
Good morning. Jose Luis Alvarado. Jomeline Balatayo. Suzanne Borges. Deborah Erickson. Cheryl Forbes. Bob Frelly.
Here.
Anna Moore.
Here.
Gerard Morrison. Here. Margot Pensaval. Iris Riggs. Kelly Scon. Yvonne White. And Commissioner Rodriguez. Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we move on, I'd like to introduce a few new folks at the table. We have a new member with us, Jose Luis Alvarado from CSU Monterey Bay, who was with us at the last phone meeting in August, but it's the first time here at the table, so welcome. And we have somebody who just stepped out of the room, which is Terry McGuire, who did there she is. Hi, Terry. Welcome to the Committee on Accreditation. We're so happy you're here with us. And we also, you might notice, have someone new sitting next to me. Right now, I am the only co-chair, so not really a co-chair, I guess, but our procedures manual that says that in this situation, we can have a substitute or interim co-chair for the day, and Bob Frelly has agreed to sit with me up here, and I'm super excited to co-chair with Bob today. So a couple of new things today. A reminder of recent changes. This meeting is no longer being streamed live because the COA has a need to Zoom into our meetings, our constituencies, institutional representatives, and team leads, and because the Commission's new video system does not allow for Zoom and webcast at the same time, we are no longer webcasting live. We have, however, allowed any individual who would like the link to Zoom into the meeting while the meeting is underway to do so. So it is possible that we may have some individuals watching or listening via Zoom in real time. Because of this, we still need to use the microphones. So please press the button on your microphone to activate it. If you do not do that, those listening on the Zoom will not be able to hear your comments. And I'd also like to ask everyone to turn your name plates so that they face this way and we can read them quickly if needed. And without further ado,
This is like Queen for a Day for those of you who are old enough to remember that show. Thank you so much. First item is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for the November meeting? Motion by Committee Member Erickson. Is there a second? Second by everyone. Let's go with Borges. All in favor, say aye. Opposed?
So I have a real quick request.
Yes.
If you could say the motion, who did the motion in the second very
Oh,
slowly,
sure.
because we have a new person taking minutes, and I'm trying to catch up also. So
I will go slowly.
thank you.
All right. So we had a motion from Committee Member Erickson, and there was a second by Committee Member Borges. So all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Motion is carried. Moving on to item 3. It's the approval of the minutes of the prior meeting. It would be appropriate at this time for any committee member who was not in attendance at that meeting to abstain. Are there any abstentions? Committee Member Erickson? Oh, sure. So we have one abstention by Committee Member Erickson. And Committee Member Riggs also was not there. We have 2 abstentions. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting? Oh, so moved by Committee Member Forbes. Is there a second? Second by Committee Member Alvarado. All in favor, say aye. Well, I guess before that, we should ask if there are any corrections or changes. Any corrections or changes to the minutes? Having seen none, all in favor, say aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, co-chair and member reports. Any members have anything to report? Looks like Committee Member White.
it is.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, yes, hello, everyone. So this is going to be my last meeting. It's been a wonderful experience, but as a classroom teacher, I really do need to be more focused on my students, and it's really difficult sometimes to step away from the classroom from my kids. So it's been a wonderful time. It's been such a pleasure meeting everybody.
Oh, we're going to miss your service. Thank you, Yvonne.
So we did have, Mary Sandy was supposed to be down here to present you with a plaque, but she must be running late. So I'm going to ask Terry, would you mind reading?
I will start this for her. I would like to offer the Commission's sincere thanks to a very special member of the COA. Yvonne White was chosen to serve on the COA in 2014, and since that time has provided valuable input in many of the accreditation decisions made during her tenure. During her term on the COA, Yvonne has championed the K-12 community with her thoughtful input and her service. Yvonne leaves the Committee on Accreditation having participated in 39 institutional accreditation decisions. This does not include the numerous program approvals she's also participated in. Her thoughtfulness and thoroughness has really benefited the COA in their decision-making and, in turn, the Commission and the students of California. As a teacher in the K-12 community, Yvonne has used her expertise to bring important insight to the work of the committee. Her perspective has kept the focus on ensuring that new educators were well prepared for the challenging and ever-changing roles played by California educators today. During her time on the COA, Yvonne has also achieved a very important goal. She is now Dr. White. Dr. White is leaving her position on the COA. But we know that whatever position Dr. White holds in California education, we have been fortunate to have had her serve on the committee. In addition, we know that wherever she is, she will remain a passionate educator, completely devoted to California students and to high-quality preparation programs. Thank you once again for your service. We have a small token of our appreciation, and we would like you to join me. I would like to present the certificate.
I'm using the computer if you want to use this.
We're going to turn around.
The flag in the back there.
This way.
So, how are we going to do that?
So much. That's beautiful. Wow. Put it in your classroom.
I definitely will do that.
Working.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
One funny thing.
Don't say that.
Often the outgoing member might say a few things if you'd like.
Member White, it's been so wonderful to follow you on your journey in higher education and your doctoral studies, and the many things that you've done aside from an inclusion of pursuing that goal. Your desire to be with your students and be further committed to your duties there is admirable, and we will miss your voice at the table, your thoughtfulness, and your wonderful smile. Thank you so much. And of course, whenever I pull out my polka-dotted computer case, I think of you. Thank you for the inspiration. Best wishes to you.
Very good. So moving on to item 5. Item 5 are the staff reports. So staff has a few items they would like to present. Ms. Hickey?
Well, first I want to report that Co-Chair Moore's computer is working, even though coffee got spilled all over it. Thank goodness. So I wanted to also welcome Dean Alvarado. I did have the pleasure of working with him on, as he addressed stipulations, coming in from, I think that was when he was first coming from San Diego State up to CSU Monterey Bay, and he really worked hard on those stipulations and got those removed. So I'm looking forward to working with you in a new capacity. I do want to let you all know that with the departure of Committee Member White, the procedures manual and the processes allow the executive director to appoint a new committee member, and she has done that effective tomorrow after Yvonne leaves this position. So the person will be James Webb. He is an induction person down in William S. Hart School District, and he was very involved in the strengthening and streamlining the accreditation system. So he will be able to hit the ground running when he joins us at the next committee meeting. So that's great. I do want to introduce one more person. Nicole, do you want to just wave and say hello? This is Nicole Hill. She is a new analyst with the commission. She will be working on accreditation. So I want you guys all to say hello to her. And we are really, really excited to have her here. We're really thrilled. So we have had a little bit of staff movement, and we're excited about that. I think it probably was prior. Miranda, there you are, was promoted to consultant, which left her assistant consultant position open, and Hart Boyd, sitting at the end of the table, has now assumed the assistant consultant position. Let's see, who else am I missing? So we do also have a couple of positions that will be coming vacant, and one of the reasons for that is Terry Ackerman in the back. You will all remember Terry, of course, for many, many, many years here on the committee. Come on, Terry. You sat at the table for how many years?
How many years?
How many?
Do we know?
So Terry has 31 years of state service.
Wow.
And 21? 21 with the commission, which is incredible. So we wanted to take a moment to thank Terry for all of her work, and I'll turn it over to Terry to kind of give that presentation.
I was thinking, Cheryl, if you had it pulled up, we could alternate the bulleted ideas.
Okay.
Okay, so I will start us off.
I got to pull it up, though. Give me a moment.
Well, there's a couple paragraph introduction to the bulleted ideas. I'll go slowly. So, I want to take the moment to acknowledge and congratulate Terry Ackerman on her retirement from the Commission and from the state of California after serving the people of California for 31 years. 21 of those years were with the Commission, and nearly all of that time, she was focusing on accreditation. Over the course of those 20-plus years, Terry made numerous contributions to the work of the COA, to accreditation, and the Commission here in California. I'm going to add an extra bulleted idea right away at the top so it gives Cheryl a few more minutes. The minutes. I'm pulling the minute idea up. The minutes this time, there were absolutely zero corrections, Terry. Congratulations. That is really an important job. So Terry has helped schedule and coordinate COA meetings for over 10 years, because I know you've been doing it since 2000-ish. 19 years. So 19 years of coordinating and COA meetings.
Keep going. For whatever reason, mine says comments on Terry Ackerman, and then they're blank.
Okay, I'll keep going.
Don't know why.
She has helped put together that item every year that is the killer item of how to get the next year's calendar, because that is a really big pain. And before the internet was anywhere near as obvious, it was really hard to get a lot of those other dates of other things. Now it's much easier to find out the dates and pull it all together. She coordinated the numerous accreditation site visit personnel, who they were, what team they were on, who was attending, creating contact lists for each of those site visits. It's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of site visits. She reviewed hundreds of precondition documents, both for new programs and existing programs. She actually writes the script. Your COA co-chairs are really brilliant people, but there actually is a script to assist them in helping move the meeting through the day. She writes the script for that meeting. She also writes the script for the commission meetings. It's now back on. She's taken the minutes for all the meetings. She's answered thousands of emails from the PSD info box, from institutions, from staff members, from members in the field. She's prepared documentation for the selection of COA members. Those agenda items get pulled together for all the materials. In all those years, Terry Ackerman has never missed a COA meeting. None of the rest of us can say that. Cheryl Hickey was able to say it till about 2 years ago, and then family life intervened. I was not able to say it. I know I missed one way a long time ago. So we want to take the time to thank you, Terry, for your dedication to the COA, to the Commission, and to the larger education community. We wish you extreme happiness in your retirement. We also have a little gift of acknowledgement, so if you could come up here. And this one I think we need to do with Cheryl, too. All the way over here.
Just thank you very much. It's been quite a learning experience. I have learned so much over the past 19 years. People on the COA really, really do important and wonderful work, and I'm proud to have been minimally associated with you. Thank you all. Thanks to the staff here. They're unbelievable. And maybe I'll pop in now and again.
I want to point out another thing Terry has done for years and years and years that you may not even have known, because today it was made obvious to me as we had to go to the grocery store and buy ice on the way in. For many, many years before every COA meeting, Terry Ackerman takes her little car to the store and brings a little bag of ice in so that there is ice in the water cooler for you so that you have cold water. So thank you, Terry.
Terry has also, in those 20 years, sometimes happily, sometimes not so happily, embraced a lot of technological changes. So when she first started here, there weren't even screens in the room, and the ability for people to observe any other way than coming here, and printing out letters if they needed to come to you and all those. And so then we went to a phone, and now we have Zoom. And I know it hasn't always been your favorite thing, but you always participated and helped. So thank you for that. Terry did a lot of the implementation work after your meetings were done, so a lot of the letters that went out to the institutions, sometimes those really complicated motions that you passed, and we tried to figure out, I think this is what they did, and had to listen to the video over and over again. So there was a lot of that work that Terry did, and I'm very, very thankful for all the many years of service, and lots of good humor at the same time. So thank you, Terry. Sometimes inappropriate. True.
Actually, that's one of the reflections I was having was how professional yet friendly your email and communication was. Yeah, sometimes I just wanted to say, hey, Terry, even though we sent it to the anonymous email. And we knew that we could always count on you. Not just with your professionalism and friendliness and down to earth, but to wear the best shoes in the room. And I was thinking we should have like a blanket in here just in memory of your presence. Yeah, you're going to be missed. Thank you so much for your service.
Just an aside, you have to see pictures of the cake that Lynette made for her retirement party. It was fantastic. So we'll show that to you at the break. So other business. So we continue to look at the elementary subject matter programs. We have another one going before the commission. So we have a total. We will have a total of 8, and we're continuing to look at them as they come through. And that one is Cal State LA, which I think they have 4 different pathways. So it's interesting. It's an interesting one. We were really, really, really busy this fall. October is always our killer month. And we were at the California Council, CCAC. I can never remember where the California part is in those 3 C's. So we went to the analyst conference here in Sacramento, and then the California Council on Teacher Education down in San Diego. We were at that meeting. Lots and lots of meetings happening this fall. It was kind of crazy. And we also started the site visits back up. We've already had 3 of them take place. One that's before you today, and the other 2 will come at your next meeting. But they're starting up in with a lot of energy. So we have, I think, 29 this year. So you're going to have a busy spring. The consultants are really working hard. Jake got to go on his first one this. So he's got 3 this time. So he'll be ready to run his own next year as a primary consultant. So we're excited about that. And Terry, I figured you would want to talk about maybe grant proposals and RECA and a few other things on your plate.
We got lots going on. So as you know, we had a number of grant programs come into this building a year ago. There was the integrated undergraduate teacher preparation, and so those are still going and moving forward. Many institutions are getting ready to start enrolling people, and if not, they're going to definitely be enrolling by the fall. In addition to that, the classified grant, which is newer version of the paraprofessional teacher training grant, which allows any classified employee in an LEA to get $4,000 towards their preparation to become a teacher. And there was a grant done of that, and then a second round has been done of that. And so we've got a number of those programs out there. As we talked last year, or last meeting, earlier in a different meeting, that the Tulare County Office of Ed is running the Teacher Recruitment Center now for California. And in addition, we are doing another grant proposal at this point in time, so we don't have any final information from it, but the Cal Ed grant. And that was about $9.2 million. Much of the money was for administrators, not for teachers. And it was for LEAs in shortages to find, prepare, professional development for both teachers and administrators in the world. And we're working through reading those proposals, and we'll in December be announcing who's going to have to get those grants. So there's been a lot of grant action in this building. People are bleary-eyed from reading proposals. It's a lot of reading to try to get this money out the door. We have had requests for way more than the $9.2 million that there's available to go out the door. On top of that, what was the other thing besides grant? The RECA. Yes, this actually is pretty exciting. There's going to be a meeting in December, on December 20th. And the focus of the meeting is to talk about the issue of teaching reading. And we know that in 1996, a law was passed requiring the commission to develop the RECA examination. And it was focused specifically on reading, not English language arts. And it was focused specifically on a certain approach to teaching reading. And the law actually is very explicit in the Ed Code about that approach. And we're now over 20 years later, and it seems like it might be time to think about this because Common Core was adopted in 2010. So on December 20th, we'll have a meeting in this room. It is going to be Zoomed for people who are going to participate from outside, but in the invitation, what we said is if you want to actively participate, please come to the room because it's going to allow you to actually, and this is being co-facilitated by a number of organizations, the Commission, the CSU Center for the Advancement of Reading, so Nancy Brynelson and Hallie Slowick will be here. CTA is also helping plan for this because CTA is getting prepared to run a bill about the RECA, and the Department of Ed is also participating. So we're going to talk about what was in 1996 and what is today, and what is the appropriate knowledge and skills for prospective teachers related to English language arts. Should it continue to stay focused very, very narrowly on specifically teaching early readers to read? Should it be broadened more in the Common Core world? And so we're going to take input from people, and I think it's going to be an exciting day. So. I think the rest of the stuff I've been doing, a lot of it's on the agenda. It's coming up in later items.
I know that maybe a little update on APA and TPA. Where's Katie? Katie, somewhere over there. There we go.
I'll start with Cal APA. We are just beginning, really, our second dipping the toe into the lake. We did a pilot year last year, which really informed our process in administrating it. Were we hitting the targets or not? So the field took it for our benefit last year. This year we're going into field testing. We have 500 candidates who will be submitting more than one of the 3 cycles to see if it's doable in multiples. Last year, many of them only tried one of the 3 cycles. And we're seeing if we're closer to our targets. We have redefined rubrics and been very specific about the rubric assessment pieces that are going on. And to help our programs, we have developed a 2-day workshop that we have held in Madera in the summer, just finished San Diego this week for the fall, one more left in Santa Clarita in the winter, and we're on target to have 100% of our programs attend and just help them realize the depth and breadth and width of this change and how many changes are going to be involved and how to start early and stay on top of it rather than try and play catch up.
And for TPA, I'm going to ask Jake also to speak, but I'll just give a little bit of background. And as you know, we've finished the pilot test in the spring, and now we're in the field test portion of it, and we have lots of folks in the field test, more than we had anticipated. They raised the number so that others could participate, and the full institution and all of the candidates could then be in the process for the field testing for the TPA. And we have for every Thursday, we have kind of a call-in day where they can call in, any of the institutions can call in that are either interested in what is happening with TPA, or perhaps they're in the field test now and they want to have information clarification for their candidates. And so each Thursday we have a phone conference for them. And then we have also what Gay has said for the APA, we have for the TPA, we have meetings that we also invite others to come to and join us in either here in Sacramento usually or somewhere on other sites, and they're looking at new sites to see where they need to be to meet the needs of the field. So Jake, if you want to speak to some more specifics.
Yeah, so we had a workshop for programs who are going to be either doing the field test or who are interested in participating in the future in the new revised Cal TPA. That was on October 25th, and I would say we had over 100 folks in the room from different programs throughout the state. And we went through the specifics of the TPA. We talked about how to implement it, and there was a lot of good energy in the room. So.
And there's also a webinar if you're interested in what's happened in a more of a concise webinar. So you can go on and watch that also. That would tell you kind of a shortened version of what happened in the lengthy visit.
What might be really helpful for us is we will send you a link to the performance assessment web page that Evaluation Systems has developed. From that one web page, you can get into both the Cal APA and the Cal TPA information.
I heard Amy say in a phone call that we have 900 participants. Is that correct? Okay. Doing the field testing of the Cal TPA, which is a significant number. And unless somebody else has, we have a lot on the agenda that's related to accreditation, so I don't know if there's anything else anybody wants to say for staff. Great. Onward.
There was good. Thank you all. Moving on to item 6. Item 6 is the program approval recommendations, and this item is organized into 5 sections, and we will move through the items section by section. Please note that staff has reordered this item so that all the action items are listed sequentially in Part 1, Sections A, B, C at the beginning of this item, and then Part 2, Sections D and E are for notification purpose only, and no action is needed. So Section A, program approvals, I believe there are 4 at this point now. Anna, I had a note here. Is this one added here? Oh, got it. Coming out. Okay. So we have this section is for action, and today there are 3 new programs for approval. Any recusals on Section A? Committee Member Pensaval. Any others? All right, thank you. So item A, we have University of Southern California, the program of professional preparation for teacher induction. Is that correct? Am I sure in the right spot? And then we have the professional preparation for administrative services clear induction credential from Capistrano Unified School District. And then we have the program of professional preparation for education specialist mild moderate intern at Placer County Office of Education. Okay, so do we ask this one? We do all together?
They do it either way. So you could either just vote on USC with Margot Pensaval recusing, and then she could vote on the other 2 as well. So you could do it in 2. That way she can get a recorded vote for the other.
Let's do that then. Let's start with the University of Southern California. Is there a motion to approve the induction program? So moved by Committee Member Borges. Is there a second? So moved by Committee Member Erickson. Is there further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. And we invite Committee Member Pensaval back to the table. Shall we do the next two together? All right, next two items are going to be the Capistrano Unified School District and then the Placer County Office of Education. Do I have a motion to approve both programs? So moved by Committee Member Moore. Is there a second? So moved by Committee Member Erickson. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Section B is program withdrawals. Section B is for action only, and there are two types of withdrawals listed. One is for withdrawals requested by the institution, and the second list of institutions are those for which the programs were inactive for over 5 years. Staff has notified the institution that we are automatically withdrawing these due to commission policy that inactive programs may be inactive for 5 years or less before being automatically withdrawn. And item B, do we have any recusals? Do I need to read all of the items?
No.
Okay. Okay. Any recusals on this item? One recusal, Committee Member Erickson. Do I have a motion to approve? We have a motion to approve by Committee Member Pensaval. Is there a second? Second by Committee Member Riggs. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed? None opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to Section C. Program requesting reactivation. This section is also for action, and there are two programs requesting reactivation at this time. Ms. Hickey, do you want to say anything about either of the programs?
Well, what I was going to say is that you have in front of you at your tables today were the two letters requesting reactivation, which you have asked in the past to see the request. So I provided you with both of those. You might want to take a moment to look at that. But the other thing I wanted to mention is they're listed as general ed induction programs, and as you know, we've moved to teacher induction. But because they were inactive, we sort of made them put together their transition plan for teacher induction. So they would be reactivating sort of their general ed induction, but really they're transitioning to the teacher induction. It's a little complicated just because of the time frame and the processes, but from a procedural point of view, we wanted them to re-up their gen ed induction before we took the next step. So, and Karen Sacramento is in the room here, and she's worked with both of those entities on this.
So what it says from Chapter 3, are you saying that there's an update coming from them? Does Chapter 3, the quote from that, does that relate to what you just said?
Can you tell me where the Chapter 3 quote is? Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, I have to look at it. Right, that's exactly right. So what happens when an institution wants to reactivate is we make sure that they have done whatever has taken place in that time frame that they've been inactive. So for instance, during that time period where we made lots of changes to intern programs, as they reactivated, we made sure we had had provided us with new language related to their support and supervision as now required. So in this case, there's been a lot of change in the past 2 or 3 years with induction. So we had them go ahead and submit their teacher induction plan, moving to the new teacher induction program standards. So they have done what everybody else has had to do. That's sort of what Chapter 3. Sorry about that.
All right, thank you. Are there any recusals on this side? We have one, Committee Member Erickson. Oh, I'm sorry. Back.
The Cal State San Bernardino and, I'm sorry,
No.
San Francisco State and King Charles.
Right, so the two items that we have are for programs. We have the San Francisco State University General Education Induction Program and the King Chavez Neighborhood of Schools General Education Induction Program. So, is there a motion to accept or to approve? So moved by Committee Member White. Is there a second? Second by Committee Member Forbes. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to Part 2. The next two sections, D and E, are for notification purposes only, and no action is needed. Section D, Programs Transitioning. The first group of 6 institutions are transitioning from general ed induction to teacher induction and now can serve all candidates, both the general ed and the education specialist. The next group of 3 institutions have now transitioned from ed specialist induction only to teacher induction and can now serve all candidates. And then the third group, a total of 3 institutions, have transitioned to new standards, but will only be serving education specialist candidates and are only approved to offer the induction program to education specialist candidates.
And I need to add one more to that final list, the one that has Cal State Fresno, Santa Clara County Office, San Jose State, and it's California State University Northridge somehow got left off this list, and it needs to be here. So I will make sure that the minutes reflect that, if you all are okay with that. And they are choosing only to serve special education candidates.
Okay, thank you. Then we have Section E. And those are programs moving to inactive status. This section is for notification only, and no action is needed. There are 2 program sponsors moving 2 programs to inactive status. Okay. All right, moving along to item 7. Item 7 is initial program approval for new program sponsors. Consultant Lynette Roby will present this action. Please note on this item there are really 2 items, 7A and 7A insert. Ms. Roby will present both of these.
The institutional representatives are going to join us by Zoom. Sure, yeah, we have a recusal.
Okay, and we have 1 recusal, Committee Member Erickson. Just take the day off. Yeah, enjoy downtown. Okay.
Okay.
So, Ms. Roby, we begin, please.
Gladly. So this is the second time as a part of the new revised initial institutional approval process that we bring before you for your consideration and possible approval credential programs for a new provisionally approved institution, and that institution is Las Virgenes Unified School District. With us today on Zoom is our 2 representatives from Las Virgenes Unified School District, and they are Ashley Winter, who is the Credential Programs Coordinator, and Ryan Gleason, Director of Education and Leadership. And they'll be here to answer any questions that you have about the programs, and of course I'm here to answer any questions about the process. So as you recall, the new IIA process was approved by the Commission back in December of 2015 and was revised in February of 2016. The process now includes 5 stages, and this presentation of Las Virgenes Unified School District's 2 programs are part of stage 3 of that 5-stage process. We provided and will continue to provide that graphic on page 2 of all of the stages of the IIA process. When Las Virgenes Unified School District Stage 3, which was the preconditions and common standards, went before the Commission back in September, they were provisionally approved for 3 years, which is enough time for them to actually, when they run the programs, to have 1 full cohort go through. After that 3 years of running the programs, they will have a site visit, data will be collected, and then they'll go back before the Commission just as a reminder for full approval. And if they receive full approval, then they'll go into the actual 7-year accreditation cycle. So it's just sort of a reminder of the process that this goes through. So as a part of now Stage 3, since they've received provisional approval by the Commission, Las Virgenes Unified School District also has submitted their program standards for the Clear Administrative Services Induction Program and a Preliminary Administrative Services Induction Program. And those have both been reviewed by a team of 2 Board of Institution reviewers assigned to each of those 2 programs, so 4 readers total. Following some revisions, the standards for both programs were found to be aligned. Since we don't expect you to review the entire documents, we have included within the agenda item the feedback sheets for each of them, and then we've also included the documents, but we don't expect you to read them because we've already had, obviously, well-qualified Board of Institutional Reviewers find the standards to be aligned. Now, just a bit about each of the programs. I'm not going to go through the entire program. The Preliminary Administrative Services Credential Program for Las Virgenes Unified is designed to be a one-year program for school administrators and teachers. The knowledge, skills, and attitudes as described in the CAPES and the CASES will be taught, applied, and assessed throughout the program. Curriculum will be developmental and sequential in nature, and candidates in their program, in the Preliminary Administrative Services Credential Program, will be required to complete 60 hours of field work, which will contain 5 hours each for the 6 CAPE domains. Assignments will include a performance assessment project and a performance assessment portfolio. Candidates will be assessed on class participation, self-assessments, classroom assignments, scenario-based classroom exams, and CAPE self-reflection. And that self-reflection will be conducted 3 times during the year. The Clear Administrative Services Induction Credential Program is a job-embedded program designed to meet the individual needs of administrators during their first 2 years of their career. The LVUSD Clear program is a combination of individualized coaching, professional learning opportunities, and assessment of skills, all dependent upon the needs of each of the candidates. So candidates will receive a minimum of 40 hours of coaching each year, and also the program will provide candidates a minimum of 35 hours of professional learning opportunities. Candidates will be selected by coaches will be selected by LVUSD and the partner employing agency or institution, and coaches will receive a minimum of 24 hours of annual coach training. Candidates will develop a leadership growth plan upon which their annual goals will be based, and using that leadership growth plan, candidates will complete a leadership growth portfolio, which will be used as a mid-year benchmark assessment and will also be submitted at the end of their year, and it will be scored by 2 readers. So that's a bit about those programs, and given that information and the item, staff recommends that the Committee on Accreditation grant initial accreditation to Las Virgenes Unified School District's Preliminary Administrative Services Credential Program and the Clear Administrative Services Induction Program. And if you have any questions, they're all here.
Thank you, Ms. Roby. I want to mention joining us on Zoom are the institutional representatives. We have Ashley Winter, the Credential Programs Coordinator. Ashley, is that you there?
Hello.
All right. All right, to be sure you can hear us, great. And then we have Ryan Gleason, Director of Education and Leadership. Anything you'd like to add?
I think Lynette did a great summary. It's nice to see so many familiar faces that we saw earlier this week at the APA training. So,
Great. Great, thank you. Any discussion or comments or questions from committee members? Committee member Pensaval.
Hi, I just had one question on a point that Lynette made, and it said that coaching, if I got this right, coaching all dependent.
Got this right.
Is everyone else's microphone on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of the feedback.
Okay. Okay.
What would you like me to do?
What would you like me to do?
Can
Oh. It wasn't that big a question. So I just had a question about, it said coaching all depended on the needs of the candidate, and I don't think that, I think I'm misunderstanding that. So if you could clarify a little bit on that, because I'm sure you're probably much more clear and specific about that.
sure. So the candidates work with their coaches for a minimum of 40 hours. And so the intent of that statement is that as the coach goes through the coaching protocols that they're trained on, they are helping support the candidate in growing in their capsule-aligned capacities that are individual to them. So we do not assume or presume that every administrator needs to be coached in the same capsule domains. Rather, we prepare the coach through facilitative and instructional coaching capacities to be able to meet the needs of the candidate based on self-reflection and other data relating to the capsule. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did answer my question. My only concern is that, as schools go and as we get really busy, I'm just really wondering how that doesn't slip through the cracks. So, all coaches do need to be coached at different amounts with different capsules. I understand that, but that's a lot of keeping track of a lot of needs, and I'm just wondering how you're documenting all that.
Sure. So the coach is working with their candidate, and the candidate has a leadership growth plan there's a coaching log that the candidate works with the coach on. Both the log and the plan align to the growth areas and the nature of the discussions that the coach is having with the candidate. So a coach is often, in our program, we envision a coach having one, maybe two candidates. So they're working very exclusively with a small number of individuals and documenting their conversations through multiple means.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further questions from the committee members? Committee member Moore.
Greetings, and
Dr. Moore,
congratulations on a well-done document. And thank you, Member Griggs, for bringing this idea of having these documents in our folders. That's really nice. It was great reading it this way with more of it's a document to read rather than a document to approve, although we are approving it. It was really helpful, and this was very well written, very succinct and understandable, and gave me some great ideas. And I expect that I know Ryan and the work that he's done in the past with teacher induction has been exemplary. I expect that this will be carried forth with great integrity and fidelity. I was curious how many candidates you expected to be enrolled in this program. Are you running a program right now under another institution?
Yeah, so I'll take the two programs separately. So with our preliminary administrative services credential program, just based on initial local surveying involving our advisory board, we believe we'll have a cohort of about 20 candidates to start off. That's our goal. With our clear administrative program, let me back up. Previously, in our region, candidates who received their preliminary credential went through local IHEs, and there wasn't a pattern per se. With clear induction, we had a partnership previously with a consortia-based program at a county office of education and had about 5 to 10 candidates per year. We anticipate in surveying our local districts that we might have in the future other districts partner with us and not be part of that consortia. So we're assuming a cohort of about 10 or 20 over the course of the next couple of years.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? This is an action item. Is there a motion to approve the Las Virgenes Unified School District program, the Administrative Services Credential? There's a motion by Committee Member Borges, so moved. By Committee Member Borges, is there a second? By Committee Member Balatayo. Further discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Thank you all very, very much.
Congratulations.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all for the support. So appreciate it.
And thank you, Ms. Roby. All right, moving on to the insert 7A insert. Ms. Roble, you begin again. No? Oh, we did. I'm so sorry. So we are now on to item 8. Is that correct?
Yeah, I had them, the script written as 2 separate action items, but I want to clarify, just make a statement that your motion included both.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item 8. Item 8 is discussion of late documents. Analyst Hart Boyd will present this action item. Does anyone need to recuse himself? Seeing no recusals, Mr. Boyd, will you begin, please?
Good morning. This is an item that comes before you at each COA meeting and provides information on institutions who have not or did not comply with the timelines established in the accreditation cycle. The only information to report on for this meeting is related to program review. In the item, there are 2 tables provided, the first of which shows the one remaining institution from the green cohort who has yet to submit a complete program review for their administrative services credential program. Just to update you, staff has been working with this institution, and if you have any questions, they will be available to answer them. As for the second table, this shows all the yellow cohort submissions that were either submitted late, were submitted incomplete, or have not been submitted at all. It should be noted that the due date for the yellow cohort program review submissions was October 15th, which fell on a Sunday, so a number of these late submissions you will see were received on the Monday following it on the 16th. As for the incomplete submission, even though you see that it was submitted prior to the due date, the reason it is on here is because out of the 15 active programs from this institution, only 9 of the programs were submitted in their program review submission. And if there are any questions, I will try to answer them as best as I can.
All right, seeing no questions, this is an action item. Oh, sorry. We do have one committee member more.
I just wanted to recognize the commission and give them a public thanks for giving the Sonoma County Office of Education an extension. We were in the midst of our firestorms when the program review was due. They also gave us an extension on our grant. Sonoma County basically came to a halt for over a week. The county office wasn't open, our schools weren't open, and even though the news has kind of tapered off on it, we have a lot of work in front of us. We have whole districts that were devastated and schools that can't get open due to fire damage, and the commission was very understanding, and we just wanted to say thank you so much.
Thank you. And Committee Member Erickson.
Thank you. Could you give us a little bit more detail on the institution who has not submitted yet, that's a year overdue?
Yes. So we've been working with them quite a bit. So they did submit they did submit something. So it wasn't that they were ignoring us. They submitted something. You might recall that the new process is to submit a course matrices that includes information and links to where a TPE or a competency is introduced, where it's practiced, and where it's assessed. Well, they have had enormous trouble with that. So we've had many conversations, both from a technical point of view and from a content point of view. So they actually ended up redoing a lot of their syllabi to be more clear about where that information is. And the dean is actually doing the linking right now. So because they have had enormous staff issues as well. So it's been a challenge. So the institution has not ignored us, but it has been really difficult. I think it took a while for us to explain what it was that we needed to see. They have had institutional personnel now attend some of the program review sessions, so hopefully it's getting clearer. But we've had numerous conversations with them, and I don't think that they're intentionally ignoring us, but they're having a lot of challenges getting it in the door. And it's supposed to come in December 1st. Catherine.
Were you asking, sorry, you were asking about Notre Dame, or were you asking about
Yes.
Shasta County?
No, I was asking about Notre Dame.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, thanks.
And we recognize, and I thank you for being gracious, I guess, about staffing issues and personnel issues. That is a long time in coming for a smaller university.
It is, and I have communicated that. So they have a site visit because they're green, and they have a site visit coming up this year. If we are not able to get it by December 1st, I'm going to have to charge them an extraordinary fee. It's a little difficult to do that because of our regs period of time, so I need to work on that and figure that out. But I am told that we will have it in-house on December 1st.
Charge them a fee and send a full review team?
Yeah.
Any further discussion? Okay, this is an action item, doesn't require any action at this time, and thank you, Mr. Boyd. Appreciate it. Before we move on, we want to recognize committee member Aida Rodriguez, representing the commission, who's made it. Good to see you. Yeah, absolutely.
This morning, and I apologize for that.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
So the driver from the hotel took me to 1900 West Capitol. You know where that is. And he insisted.
Okay.
He insisted that I get off, and I was like, no, this is not it. So I had to plug in my phone and the GPS, and hence the delay.
We are glad you are here, definitely. All right, moving on to item 9. Item 9 is the new format for Common Standards site visit reports. Administrator Catherine Kearney will present this item. This item is for information. Dr. Kearney, will you please begin?
Good morning. Yes. So over the course of now, I guess we can say 2 years really, we have been charged with strengthening and streamlining the accreditation system. And I think we have done a lot of work in both of those areas of which all of you are well aware of because you've been deeply involved in it. With that, the other charge also was transparency. And so in looking at how we provide institutions and you with information from a site visit, we also felt like we needed to attend to the issues of strengthening, streamlining, and remaining transparent while still providing you with the knowledge that you need to be able to make accreditation decisions. We have, I guess we're kind of piloting it right now, but a while back you approved a different format for how we collected information about the common standards, or how we presented information, about the common standards at the conclusion of a site visit. We didn't implement that right away due to all the other work that we were doing, but we have now. And if you'll look on your agenda item, we provided you with a template for what we do for what we currently are piloting for site visits with 1 to 2 programs, and actually we're using it for one site visit that has 3 programs, but they're all added authorization programs. And we've actually completed a couple of these, and I don't know if the people are in the room, but we flipped also the order in which you get information on site visit reports in general. And you'll see that later today in the report that you already saw it, because I know you've read it because you read everything. But we put the program reports at the beginning because programs taken together create the unit. And often that detail is in the program report. And so those have been moved to the front. And then if you will look, it begins on page 8. How we redesigned the common standards portion of the report was to create a table
And during deliberations, page 8 of the item, sorry, is to have the teams look at each line of the common standard, which they actually do in the other format too, but this pulls it out a little differently, and to talk through whether that part of the standard, of the common standard, is occurring consistently at the unit level, inconsistently, or it's not evidenced. So you'll see it laid out very graphically for you in terms of that. At the conclusion of each kind of little chart for that common standard, the team still determines if the standard is met, not met, or met with concerns. What isn't here anymore is the couple of pages of narrative about that common standard. And one of the reasons for that is when there's only one program or two programs, it was beginning to be very repetitive because the common standards for one program, a lot of that detail was in the program itself. So by kind of spelling out the consistently and inconsistently with check marks, there's still team members are still making sure that they address everything, but without repeating the narrative that you saw in the program standards report. There is a place, though, which is extremely important, directly underneath that finding, which would have one or two things. Either if the standard is not met, fully met, then there'll be rationale as to why it's met with concerns or why it's not met. If it is a standard that is met, then instead of a rationale, the team will provide you with additional information regarding their standards, the standard decision for that standard. So you're still getting a summary statement. Then at the very end of the common standards report, that part of it, at the very end of really what's now the end of the report, is an institutional summary. And we ask then, taken all together at the unit level, for the team to provide you with a summary statement. So the changes are more minimal on the full report, and I just wanted to check in with you before I move on if you have any questions about this report template. I don't think I call on you. I think you call on yourself.
I do have a question. Committee member Moore, co-chair Moore. Just a question in the spirit of strengthening and streamlining, really the streamlining piece. You're mentioning the use of a summary statement. I'm curious as to if that's really necessary.
Well,
or what the purpose is.
We felt uncomfortable not having some narrative there for you all. I think after we kind of go through a very large quantity of institutions fall into the one or two program category, both induction programs and some very small college programs. So I think that you'll be able to tell us if that's necessary once you've had an opportunity to read them. We didn't want you to lose the heart of the conversation. We hope that putting the narrative on the programs first will help, but then kind of tying it all together felt like it would be useful. It's only 200 words, 200 or 300 words in general, but you'll tell us if we need it or not.
It harkens for me back to when we had to caution people to not say 10 minutes of thank yous,
which we have done, by the way.
Right, exactly. And I'm just wondering again, and we'll see. Obviously, if we'll get some repetitive rhetoric in there. Just thank you. It was a wonderful visit. All standards have been met, or all portions of the standard and elements have been met with integrity, fidelity, yada yada.
Yeah. So institutional summary is not a statement by the institution. In case I wasn't clear, it's this team still, and there's a lot of consultants in the room, and I think they'll take that message that you just delivered.
Committee member Erickson.
I appreciate your comments about brevity, but I do believe programs have worked and institutions, for the most part, have worked so hard on this that, from at least thinking about our institution, that's appreciated, just that summary. But I would caution again about the brevity and making sure that it's short and sweet. Yeah.
And there's also a little statement at the end of each standard itself that's also very brief but specific to that standard. And we'll find out if it's too much or not enough. So that is being piloted right now. The long form, for lack of a better word, which is for right now for institutions with more than 2 programs. And the other thing that could happen at the end of this is you could say we prefer that you use the 1 to 2 institution form for everything, or try it out for slightly bigger programs. I mean, we can phase it in, or you might, you're going to be in the driver's seat once this is all said and done. In the longer form, we also have moved the program reports to the beginning, but what you will see in the, and I don't want to skip this, in both reports, I almost forgot to mention this. If you look on page 3 of the second report, so the page numbering started over, looks like it started over twice. It says the visit. If you'll remember in the past, what we had was sometimes quite lengthy narratives. The team arrived, we had eggs for breakfast, and we went on, and everyone unpacked their suitcase. The hotel had a lovely garden. I mean, depending on who was writing it, sometimes it was quite expanded on all the details of the visit. And what we've come to learn over numerous report outs is that what you really want to know, was it normal or did something weird happen? So now we have the visit, a choice of 2 choices. The visit proceeded in accordance with all normal accreditation protocols. You won't get to know what people had for lunch, but you can ask if you want to know. And then if it wasn't normal, then the visit proceeded in accordance with all normal accreditation protocols, with the exception of, and then an expanded description of, there was a power outage for 2 days, or, we had a member leave in the middle of the visit, or all kinds of things that actually have happened. So that'll be there. So the longer form currently will still have the program reports at the beginning, as with the other ones. And then if you'll notice that the common standards will proceed as it did before, with from several paragraphs to a couple of pages, depending on what there is to say, narrative about that common standard. And then followed by a rationale if there's one needed, and again, still the decision on the part of the team of met, not met, or met with concerns.
Committee Member Forbes.
Well, thank you to the staff for all of this work on the reports, having both written them and read them numerous times, particularly the common standards. I would encourage us to think about using the short form for all visits, partly because in the long form you lose this idea of, it may come out in the writing, but it might not, whether the standards are being consistently or inconsistently met. And I think that's, an important and quick way to get at where some of the issues are, rather than met or met with concerns, which is a higher level judgment,
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like when I read that short form, I was like, yay, this looks really good. And now when I see the longer one, it looks kind of like the past. And I just think I would miss that as a writer and as a reader, that kind of intermediate judgment of consistently or inconsistently met, that then helps you arrive at the met or met with concerns decision.
Committee Member Morrison.
I don't have any experience of writing these, but I'd just like to say that just looking at these, I found it real clear, and it was very helpful for me. I could see with the boxes and then the short reports. I would give my thanks. I found this very clear and easy to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee Member Riggs.
Yeah, I was actually looking at that first form with the consistency, inconsistency, and really agree with what Cheryl said. but I'm also thinking about it from the institution's perspective as a really helpful document, and maybe they already get this, I don't know, but I haven't seen it. Just so that they're thinking about the standard in those pieces, not just an overall met, not met, but I mean, to me, that would be a great document for the institution to receive as they're reviewing themselves prior to the visit. So.
I think that it may help institutions really zero in on an aspect of a standard because it's so graphic. We do work with institutions to help them understand that all of the standard is important. I will share with you that he's on a call, or he's presenting. So Bob Locks just came back from a college visit in which this form was used, and so I kind of drilled him this morning before I came down here. He's over at the department actually right now, but I asked him for feedback, and he said that the team really liked it, and that they felt like it helped them with their deliberations in the fact that it was actually a very positive visit, but it helped them feel very focused, and that they didn't feel that they had lost any of the strength of the conversation. So you will not have that report today. And then I know there is someone else in the room who did use it for a revisit, and I don't know if you wanted to add anything.
We used the new short form for the revisit that you'll have on your next item, and it was the same thing. It really allowed, I think, the team to look at, and there was a point where we actually could circle a part in one of the specific rows saying, we still need to see more of this. And it was really very helpful, I think, to use the report, and you could ask Dr. Birdsall also. In fact, she thinks it looks like she might be willing to come to the table to share information as a team member using that form.
Just one caution on using the form. It has many, many benefits. However, it starts to make it feel as if there are no longer 5 or 6 common standards. There are 32 common standards. And so I really want to caution against using it that way and allowing teams to explain if they need to here or in the text why many could, not many, but a few more could be inconsistently, but they felt strongly that the entire standard was met. So I just wanted to make sure I got that caution out here somewhere. Thank you.
Committee Member Erickson.
Thanks for the feedback today. My question, and you all do this so well, I was just wondering about the data collection plan for the pilot and if you were getting, besides staff input, university input, etc.
So we have another item that's coming up in a few items to talk about all the accreditation, but we are seeking input, and we will continue to do that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Is that a yes? Oh, sure. Okay, good. All right. Again, sure, you can.
So just for clarification, I heard a lot of support for the short version. I heard Cheryl encourage us to consider using it for all visits. This isn't an action item, so we can't take action, but I'm wondering, are you okay with the plan to keep proceeding with the short and the long, and then in the future think about using it for all? Okay, I just want to make clear that you weren't suggesting that we do that this year. Okay, perfect. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Great.
The original approval didn't limit this, so Cheryl's intent from her encourage. She said encourage. Okay. So I didn't know if that meant this year. Go ahead and use it for all. Right. But it sounds like you want to collect the data, see how it goes, and then make a decision about that. That's all right. Great.
Yeah, again, this is for information. Oh, wait. No, so I'm sorry, Committee Member Riggs.
I do have a little bit of a concern about that because the words of consistent and inconsistent are not there. And to me, that makes it a different process to some extent. And then I also wanted to to have you share that document with the institutions. I think that just the way you're reporting, it's helpful to the team to think about the standards in that way. It's helpful to the institution to think about the standards in light of those words, consistent, inconsistent, or not evident.
So when you took action on this format a while ago, you did not limit us to only using it with small institutions. So it doesn't require action. What I'm wondering is if you would be comfortable with staff sort of continuing as we are, sharing it for technical assistance, and if there's an institution that's larger that we feel like we could try it on, then I don't know how nervous I'm making Terry and Cheryl.
Well,
but
I'm thinking
yeah.
of something a little bit different, which is we could provide that matrix to the team, because I think it's easier for the team to go through and make those check marks and still fill out the long form for those, so that they have both. That's what I'm thinking. Well, so I was just thinking what I heard was that chart is actually helpful for everybody, and so having all teams maybe complete that chart might help them focus where they write the narrative.
So if staff could work on this, and if I guess what I'm asking is, if since you didn't limit us, if we can kind of figure it out and then and maybe try it in some context, because I heard also today that you like the check marks, but you don't want to go overboard on the narrative, and so maybe we can do a little phase in on some other institutions that are bigger, where we feel like the team is seasoned enough and all the other things are in place, while still providing that for guidance. Can staff work on this? Are you guys comfortable with that? Terry?
I want to point out about the inconsistent, consistently, and evidenced. If we're doing a good job with our teams, you're going to see that in the narrative, but it's going to take paragraphs. And so you'll see times where we say, it was consistently reported that blank, blank, and blank happened. Just that form is a shorthand way. And so when we don't say it was consistently said in a report, that means that, yeah, we heard it and we believe it, but that may not have been all we heard. So we are trying to get the consistent, inconsistent thing into your narrative part of the report, and we will continue working on that this year. But I think Catherine has kind of a good point. If you're willing to allow it to be flexible, to have the consultant work with Cheryl and we'll work with the institution, we could do it that way.
Committee Member Pensaval.
So just one brief comment. When we went through the streamlining, what we talked about were differentiated visits for different institutions. And maybe these forms are differentiated forms for different institutions. So if everything seems to be clear, then we could use, I really like the abbreviated, I don't want to call it abbreviated, a streamlined form. I like what it gives to me as I look at it. But maybe there are institutions that need more detail, and maybe they need the narrative, and that would be the decision of the team.
I have one more comment on this. So one more comment on this. I think Catherine mentioned it, but I don't know how much it was highlighted, and that is the history. You had asked for the history of the
Thank you, I forgot.
institution. So what we've done here is allow for the link to be right there. We're not going to pull out every standard that wasn't met in the past, but I think our consultants should have that in their back pocket so that we know that if there's a finding at an institution and it's the same finding as the last time, that they will know that and be able to report to you that this is a historical thing. But we wanted to make sure you saw that we have implemented that.
Thank you. I skipped right over that.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? I do want to thank and commend the work that's been done on this. And having been on the site visit, this is just an amazing amount of work and on the ongoing process of streamlining and refining. So thank you for everything you've done with that. All right, again, there's no action needed. And again, thank you, Dr. Kearney. Appreciate it. We are in a time certain. We're going to skip number 10 and move on to number 11. Number 11 is the discussion of guidance on fieldwork for the MS and single subject credential programs. Consultant Jake Schuler will present this information at this time. Mr. Schuler, will you begin, please?
Okay, good morning. This agenda item provides an opportunity to discuss the guidance document on clinical practice and supervision of preliminary, multiple, and single subject teaching candidates that was released in September. This guidance document was sent out as a program sponsor alert. It was included in our weekly PSDE News Bulletin and also posted to the CTC website. To go over some of the history, so to provide context on the need for the document, in 2015, the Commission adopted new program standards for preliminary, multiple, and single subject credential programs. The standards included new requirements for the fieldwork and clinical practice for candidates. These standards are significantly different than previous versions of the clinical practice standards, and in some respects are much more specific. One example of the specificity of the current standards is that there is now a minimum 600 hours required for candidates. As the field began revising their programs to ensure alignment with the new standards, many questions were raised. The staff discussed a number of these questions and issues with the Commission in April and June of 2017, and then also with the COA in June of 2017. Following these discussions, staff developed the guidance document in order to assist the field, Commission staff, and reviewers during accreditation activities on issues related to fieldwork and clinical practice. Also in August, members of the COA, so Member Frelly, Member Riggs, Member Forbes, and Member Scahn reviewed the document as well and provided feedback to staff to make sure that we got your input on what this should look like. So the final version of the guidance document is attached to the item today and is organized into 4 sections. The first section is a general guidance section, which includes a discussion of the goals of clinical practice, the requirements for record keeping for hours completed by candidates, and the responsibility that institutions bear to make sure they meet the intent of the standards as written, even if they may meet them in a unique way that they feel fits their candidates best. The second section is on clinical practice experiences. It includes a discussion of which activities are appropriate or inappropriate to count in the 600 hours, and also the requirements for the 4 weeks of solo or co-teaching experience. The third section is about placement requirements. It details the needs for diverse placements. It provides some specificity around placements for intern candidates and also for private school placements. The last section of the document is about specifically support and supervision of candidates during fieldwork. So it also talks about the flexibility for programs in meeting the required observation and weekly hours requirements, as long as they're still meeting the intent of the standard and are maintaining an average that is at or above the numbers in the standards. Okay, and you have the document there, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Committee Member Erickson.
I just wanted to say thank you for all of your work on this. It provided great examples of what exemplary clinical practice should look like.
The newly adopted multiple single subject standards are really a sea change because Katie Croy has had a lot of experience explaining the prior requirements and field experience because they were a little more nebulous. And sometimes you think, oh, 600 hours, that's more clear. It's really easy. Yeah, it's not. Because then as soon as you put a number there, then everyone wants to know what counts in those hours and what doesn't count. And I really want to thank all of you for your input. I know we discussed this at your June meeting and got continued feedback from you. I want to thank Jake. He kept moving this forward. And it really allowed us to get what I think of as a comprehensive document with all the information we needed. And it was important for the field. Thank you.
Co-Chair Moore.
Also, thank you. A very clear, concise document. And I like the recommendations of record keeping that institutions should be considering how they gather their information and do record keeping in their program review documentation to align with this. it's always good to be just a little bit ahead of how are we going to collect this and how's it going to be arranged and what's it going to tell us. So I really appreciated that. Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Committee Member Pensaval.
Yeah, I really like this document, and I really like the 600 hours, and I really like the consistent across programs. I have heard from a lot of programs that they're struggling on how to meet that 600 hours, and I'm just wondering if you had any comment on that.
Well, I've gotten those questions and concerns as well. Sometimes in different programs are clearly counting these hours differently. As far as if a candidate is leading a class for a week, are they counting all of the hours that they're with their students, or only the ones that they're with their mentor? So there's a lot of differences in how programs are counting it. So I have fielded some questions and sort of making sure that we can walk this document together and that they understand that there may be certain hours that they didn't think were counting that may count according to the guidance document now. So, yeah.
All right, any further discussion at all? Okay, this is not an action item, for information only, so thank you again, Mr. Schuler, appreciate it. We are moving along on the agenda. We have several items we can pass by, but before we do that, we're going to do lunch at 11:30, and does anyone want to take a break now, a stretch break? Would 5-minute break work? All right, we'll see you. To take their seats, we'll get started. We're on 14. All right, let's reconvene. Oh, it is Cheryl's. Yeah, we're looking at item 14, and go ahead and take a read through that. Cheryl's saying she would like to have a lot of feedback on that item. So let's get, no worries, we're tap dancing. Item 14 is the discussion and approval of the COA annual report to the Commission. So again, this is an item that they would like to have some thorough feedback from us on this. Yeah, Committee Member Pensaval. We ready? You good, Cheryl? Yeah.
Okay, so when I read this is a really good report. I really liked reading it. It was so comprehensive, and it brings to my mind that I don't know if it's the Commission or us, but this is our report, so I will say us, that we keep reinventing ourselves and getting, I think, not me, but the work all the staff does, and getting better and better, and it sounds so professional, and it takes everything we did last year. So I just want to say kudos to everybody who had a hand in this, because it was an excellent report.
Agreed.
I would like to point out that this is Cheryl Hickey's work. She compiled. It is all the staff did all the work, but Cheryl has put a lot of time into this report. It has been refreshed in some ways and reformatted slightly. And Cheryl, thank you very, very much for taking the care and time, because we really have to get our story out, and I think this does do it. It's going to be going to the Commission in December, which is why if you have any extra fine-tuning hints, because the December agenda items are posted next Wednesday. We only have till then.
Thank you very much. Any edits I would love to have today so I can get them in and get it posted by Wednesday or maybe even Tuesday. Really? I expected you guys to spend a lot of time on this. So, sure, just trying to find it. Good, thank you.
Do you have some?
While you're looking, one of the things that really stood out in terms of this report in regards to you all and your work was that although there was a pause in accreditation visits, you all did not sit around doing nothing. That there was still a lot of action and decisions and important work that was done by the COA. Okay. Jay Clementi.
Co-Chair Moore.
Page 7, the ADS system, basic operation in late 2017. Is that the...
Page what page? I'm sorry.
Page 7.
7, okay. Page 7.
The ADS system. Is this basic operation in late 2017? Is that okay?
Yes.
Just wanted to double check that. And then in the next one, in program review, it says the institution has provided feedback and then must provide an addendum at least 60 days prior to the site visit. I wondered if it's possible to give a timeline and at which the institution might anticipate that feedback.
Oh, what was that? Oops. When they might anticipate what?
It says the institute has provided feedback. Is that within 6 weeks, within 60 days?
Okay.
Can we? Maybe there isn't a reg on that.
Go ahead, Catherine. So I think that we are going to provide information and it'll be formalized. It's not in the report, especially since it's the first year that we're rolling it out. In the future, we could talk about averages. Some of the issues that affect that are availability of reviewers and what we are attempting to do, and I'm kind of jumping into another item right now, but is review this fall and send back one report back to the institution for all of their programs. So our intention with which I anticipate having very few exceptions, but there's always exceptions, will be to have that in the hands of all programs prior to the due date of their common standards. Someone's signing on to Zoom that's not muted. There we go.
Committee Member Erickson.
If the people who are signing on to Zoom could please mute their microphones. Thank you.
There.
That's good. Thank you, Jamal.
I had a question about the numbers on page 40. For the other program sponsors, after each one of those is a number in parentheses, and I'm assuming that's the number of candidates in their programs, but that wasn't delineated.
Those used to be the old bits and numbers, and they really should be dropped from here.
Okay,
so the first number was the cluster number, and then the number of the program. So those really have just existed, and we haven't taken them off this list. But certainly, I will do that before it goes to the commission. Thank you.
Committee Member Erickson.
Other than that, I just want to say the report was clear, it was well organized. Once again, just reiterating what Dr. Pensaval said, it really summed up quite a bit of work, and there was one place that Cheryl noted no small amount of work has been done, and I had to laugh when I was reading that, because I was thinking, this is just such a large amount of work without even the visits happening. So thank you to everyone's work on this.
That was what I was hoping you'd get out of it. So thank you. I wanted to make sure that message was really, really clear to the commissioners, so that we weren't just taking the year off, that it was really busy.
Any other comments or discussion or input? It's very impressive and thorough in work. Thank you so much. This is quite impressive. Okay, so this is an action item. Do I have a motion to go ahead and approve the COA annual report to the Commission? Everybody, Committee Member Borges made the motion. Is there a second? Committee Member, Palatayo, my hand's this way, sorry. Palatayo. All right, so any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. All opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you so much. All right.
So the schedule is that this item will go to the commission on Friday morning, December 8th, and Co-Chair Anna Moore and hopefully another representative, and we'll discuss that later, will be at the table that morning with Cheryl to present this item for the commissioners.
Okay, let's move on to item 15. 15 is an update on the accreditation activities. We are way ahead of schedule.
I think because we allow people, if they want to have the Zoom, and we had a request, so that's probably who they are.
Okay. So this is an update on an accreditation activity. So Administrator Catherine Kearney, will you please begin?
I think this is great that this follows on the heels of the accreditation report, the work of your report. We have been busy, as has been already noted, and but in regard to accreditation, as you'll recall, the 7-year cycle continues, and the site visit continues to be in the 6th year. Some things that we have discussed previously is the addition of annual data submission, preconditions coming in twice rather than just at the site visit. Now they come in the 1st year and in the 4th year of the cycle, which ensures that those basic issues of compliance are attended to, and that we can take action in a speedy manner should there be issues around preconditions. And those are not just general precondition submissions, those are preconditions for each and every program that an institution sponsors. Those are read by staff. And the feedback is between us and the institution. This year, we had actually 3 cohorts that submitted, and the reason for 3 is that the green cohort submitted because it was the year of their site visit, and then the other 2 cohorts were either in year 1 or in year 4, and those were the yellow and the violet cohort. Yellow was in year 4, violet in year 1. Year 5, we're well underway with year 5 submission requirements. And in year 5 of the accreditation cycle, there are actually 2 things. There's program review and there's common standards review. Program review comes in the fall, in mid-October, and common standards that submission is due February 28th. The green cohort participated in common standards submission under the new system. They submitted last spring, and those were reviewed. And yellow is the first cohort that is entirely participating in the new system. Green has kind of 1 foot in the old and 1 foot in the new. The common standards that were reviewed for green and that will be reviewed for yellow, we're hearing really good things from the teams. So what happens now is we recruit common standards reviewers very specifically. It's a little higher level skill group of BIR members who have had some experience. Especially with green, we were really careful to have real veterans do this. But we survey them for their availability for the review and make sure that the team lead is also available for that same review. And when we bring them together and they are reviewing for the institution that the following fall and spring that they will be at the site visit. So the common standards folks are selected and they know that they're going to be there. So they review the evidence and they produce a feedback form, and the institution's required to post an addendum 60 days out. What's nice for the institution and for the reviewers is that the reviewers are creating for that institution sort of a set of directions. It's very formative. Like, here's what we're not seeing in this review, the evidence that you've sent us, and that because those same people are going out to the site visit, they're going to see the addendum. They are going to be following up on what they noticed and validating what they saw. What we have told both institutions and reviewers is that these programs are totally operational.
They're not seeking initial approval. So rather than them telling us through a narrative, they're showing reviewers by providing example. So it's really early entree into the virtual evidence room. So that happened for Green in the spring, and some of those visits have already been underway, and the Common Standards reviewers and their team leads have followed up. Right now we're in the throes of program review for Yellow, and for each program, an institution submits a very specific set of evidence that you all approved, and the reviewers come together. It's a little bit of a combination of Match.com and a really big Jenga game. So a survey went out for really anyone that was interested in reviewing programs, and we got a lot of brand new reviewers, which is good because this is part one of the BIR training is reviewing these submissions. And so I match based, number one, on expertise, but then they tell me if they're available for site visits that are happening in 1819. So they hold on their calendar, and then I find two reviewers that have the same expertise, are available for the same site visit, have no conflicts with that institution, and then are available on the same day to do reviews. So we did that for about 175 pairs of reviewers. And then the Jenga game is when someone calls and says, I can't do it anymore. And so then I pull that rod out and hope the tower doesn't fall. But there's been such support for people wanting to learn this that the tower has not fallen. And as of today, we have reviewed about 45 programs, including induction programs, bilingual authorization programs, CTEL programs, multiple single subject programs, clear admin, and preliminary admin programs. That doesn't mean we've reviewed all of those programs, but those are the sets of programs that we have been reviewing. And our reviewers, for the most part, finish within one day, and they feel like the evidence that they're looking at is stronger than what they looked at when they were reviewing long narratives. The reason that it's quicker is because the difference between looking at evidence and reading 1,000 pages, takes less time on the clock. So it's not any less thorough, it's just you're not wading through as much narrative. We're also hearing from the institutions that they're appreciative that they're not being redundant, where they describe a course in response to Standard 2 and then they're doing it again in response to Standard 5, that kind of thing. So those are going on right now because it's year 5. The feedback from the program review will also be available for the Common Standards reviewers, and a subset of the reviewers who reviewed program review will be on the team, all Jenga games staying in place, on the site visit. Now, if if an institution has 10 programs, that's 20 reviewers, sometimes more than 20 because we tried not to turn people away who wanted to help. So some teams had 3. And not 20 people will not go on the site visit. It's still program sampling, and reviewers will be drawn from that. So reviewers are holding dates in 2019 until the spring when we can identify the teams. The Yellow visits are going to be happening in the fall and spring of 2019. They have already selected their dates, which is really nice for planning for the institution, because now they have that more than a year in advance. It'll also allow us to assign a consultant earlier. Now, we're not assigning consultants while green visits are still going on, because the consultants are busy with their green institutions. So, that'll happen later in the year, and also we'll be able to have team leads be able to hold dates and plan well in advance, and same with team members. We know that the opposite could happen, where people think they're going to be busy in a year and then things happen, and we think because we've had all these reviewers reviewing the submission that we'll have a pool of people that if someone can't go on the site visit, we'll be able to draw from that. So that is, in a nutshell, the what's happening with accreditation activities, except for one thing, and I'm going to kind of punt this over to Terry to talk about, which is the changes with a very specific subset of initial institution approvals.
So, back in 2010, the legislature passed a bill as urgency legislation. And when you have a bill that's urgency legislation, you need 2/3 of the legislators to vote for it. And the day the governor signs it, it takes effect. So that was a really important thing that had to happen immediately. And the bill that the governor signed in an extraordinary session had to do with community-based organizations or non-governmental organizations, CBOs or NGOs. And because we had a career technical education teacher shortage, it would allow those types of organizations to be approved to prepare teachers for career tech STEM fields. So really math teachers, science teachers, career technical education teachers. And it said that the commission, and it gave us some pretty short timelines, had to develop procedures for this. And so it's called the NGO CBO initial institutional approval process, because our other enabling legislation says that regionally accredited institutions of higher education may offer any type of the educator preparation the commission offers, and there are specific types of programs where LEAs, local education agencies, are authorized to offer the programs. So we put this all together. Cheryl and I, we did a lot of research. We got a lot of information. We looked into what WASC did, because if colleges and universities are required to be accredited by WASC, for example, what is that process? And so we came up with a process for NGOs and CBOs. And we talked with a couple of institutions that were considering doing this. No one ever did it. Now we're in 2017. In 2015, we talked with an entity, 2016, and then 2017, they said, oh yeah, we want to come now and talk with you about this now. They are a CBO, NGO type organization. And then we looked at the process that had been adopted in 2010. It was adopted when there were 9 common standards. It was adopted before there was annual accreditation fees. It was adopted before there was a different initial institutional approval process that had 5 stages. And what we had to do is we had to retool the NGO CBO process on a fairly short timeline. And so we did review it, we retooled it, we took it to the commission, and they've already adopted those modifications. So in addition to updating everything else, we have also updated the initial institutional approval process for NGOs and CBOs. We do have one organization that is interested in doing this, and they have, I believe, have they ever actually gotten their official submission in? They have officially submitted, and they have attended Accreditation 101, I think. So there is an entity moving into this process. We'll see what happens as it moves forward.
Thank you, Terry. I also wanted to mention that the reason why I glossed over the annual data is because there's a whole item that's focused on that. So with that, I'll be happy to take any questions. What's the coolest thing about this Jenga game, this Match.com Jenga game, is that we now will be able to have our site visit team members solidified an entire year and 3 or 4 months ahead of time. And we're still working on the green teams right now. I mean, so it's a lot of work up front, but it all plays out way better on the end game. So it's awesome. I mean, I am just really thrilled with it. And Catherine spent probably 5 or 6 weeks kind of pulling this together. I mean, it was a lot of time. It has been a lot of time, but I think that in future years, it'll still be a complicated process. But I had to learn some efficiencies in how to make this work. So, partway through, I sort of changed my algorithm for how putting people together. So, the other thing that I am hearing from reviewers is kind of there's been so many people who've been reviewing that are new who feel like they're now empowered to go back and do a better job on their own documents. So.
Another huge improvement to this process, in my view. So this is about 14th year or so I've been doing accreditation visits. For the first time ever, I know my Common Standards people 100% have read the Common Standards document because they already did it, and they already did the feedback, and the feedback's already at the institution. In other years, there were site visits where it's the week before the visit, and I am not actually convinced that every one of my team members has read what they were supposed to have read before the visit. But because people who have done the Common Standards review are on the team, and the people who did the program review are on the team, I know everyone is conversant with the institution, and it's nowhere near as panicked. And also another huge thing is, I am not having to dog institutions on monthly calls to get their documents done and posted, because their documents already had to be done because they already had to be submitted for either Common Standards review or program review. So I think it's creating some really important efficiencies for the process in general.
I think one thing that has been a mind shift for reviewers is that reviewers are peers and they really, really want that institution to do well. So that hasn't changed. But what we've had to really talk about during these reviews is that providing feedback is helpful to the institution. Nobody gets a D- for having a bunch of feedback, nor do they get an A+ for not having any. What they do get is some very clear guidance from people who are going to be at their site visit about things that they couldn't make a decision of preliminary alignment about. And so in some cases, what I've heard from institutions regarding Common Standards is it was actually not just an issue of we didn't tell our story well or we didn't show our evidence well. It was an issue of reviewers uncovering a problem. And because they had so much time, institutions were not just able to, kind of in the past where you're getting that feedback a couple weeks before the visit's happening, you can't make a change. They can meet with faculty and they can actually improve the program before the site visit happens, which is our goal, right? Because it's not a gotcha. It's a continuous improvement. And so I've talked to a couple of institutions that had some kind of major problems that are well underway in doing, kind of correcting the stipulation before they get it. It's reviewing the preconditions. We have found a couple of things that needed to be addressed right away, and we were able to get right on the phone with the institution and have them address it. So nothing that has prompted us to bring it forward to you, but that may happen in the future. But that's great. I know that this committee has had real concerns about if a precondition is not being met by an institution, and we had conversations about that being found at an institution and why didn't the team leave kind of thing, and just say no, you're not meeting it. But this gives us a chance to really address it immediately, and if we need to, bring it back here. So we have 5 more program review sessions. Some of them are giant, some of them are smaller, happening. If everyone shows up when they're supposed to, I think I have 5 more scheduled. And then in the spring, there'll be 6 or 7 Common Standards review dates. None of you can participate as reviewers, but I'm happy to provide those dates to you if you want to observe. You would be more than welcome to do that. They're one in that they're married to each other. Couldn't hear. Common Standards review will happen, I think they submit in March, right? No, right. February 28th. Thank you. It's due. And the first ones, we try to start scheduling reviews like within 3 weeks or so, which Hart, who is sitting here, I have to give him a lot of thank yous if he's listening. He spot checks. And I think Nicole helped also, and I don't know who else has helped. Oh, EORA, who's not here. But they don't read for quality, but they try to spot check and make sure all the links are open. So there has to be a little delay between submission and the first review. And I will tell you, it has become very complicated when institutions do not submit on time, or they don't submit a full submission where certain programs are missing, or they submit and things don't work. That's problematic. That's true, because one of the things I hadn't thought about is that institutions really need to know this is not the old system where if you get it in late, we'll find the reviewers. This is the reviewers are coming on X date, and if we don't have that document, it causes a lot of problems. So.
All right, any further comments? Committee Member Erickson.
Again, thank you for all of your work on this and thinking it through. And at some point, after going through this for a year, I think it would be very helpful maybe to share this even with, on a larger scale, say, with the CAPE staff, about how it might...
You're moving my retirement earlier if you're asking me to do that.
All right, so the agenda says this is an action item. No action is needed at this time. Thank you, Catherine, for your excellent work on that. Thank you, everybody, for your comments.
And making all these big changes.
It looks like we do have everybody present. We're going to go back to item 10, agenda item 10. And while they're getting settled, agenda item 10 is the report on the accreditation revisit team to the United States University. Administrator Terry Clark will introduce this item, and with her at the table is team lead Dr. Joe Birdsell, and institutional representatives Dr. Jennifer Newman, Provost, and Dr. Marco Curiel, Director. Welcome. Before we proceed, does anyone need to recuse himself? All right, Ms. Clark, will you begin, please?
Good morning. The revisit to United States University was a second revisit. You had a report at your April commission meeting, or your May commission meeting, and you asked for there to be another revisit, and you set a fairly short timeline. In the first page of the report, you'll see the stipulations that were placed after their March revisit. I've worked with United States University since about April of this past year, and we met monthly. We worked through things. We set up the schedule. We brought 2 reports to you in the intervening time, and then we went for the revisit, and the revisit report is here, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Birdsell to take you through and talk with you about the report.
My comments are going to center around 3 points. Don't trust, verify. Number 2, verify in multiple ways. And number 3, acknowledge success, but plan for continued implementation and improvement. So don't trust, verify. I saw the previous reports and submissions to the consultant from USU. I was not excited about what I was going to see once on site. I had already contacted Terry as consultant to find out what to do in the case that we could not find evidence. I was ready. But the difference between the documents I last saw on the website and those we reviewed in the first meeting was like night and day. We heard from faculty and administrators about their assessment plan and the timelines for each part, how each part of the system informed others and were communicated. Everyone was clear and the message was consistent. This is great for the small group, but I needed to move on to point 2, verify in multiple ways. Although the numbers of people in interviews were small, they were all interviewed. In particular, the enthusiasm that was shared by those who served as part-time faculty was evident. Each of them articulated their collaboration in the program design and its alignment with the TPEs, and described a day-long workshop where they worked together to ensure that TPEs were covered but not replicated. Beyond that, the interviews confirmed that the part-time faculty understood the assessment plan and their role in it. Part-time faculty have roles on different committees for ongoing program improvement through database decision-making. However, the third point is, acknowledge success, but plan for continued implementation and improvement. USU faculty, staff, and administration are to be commended for their dedication to learning what the accreditation requirements mean, what evidence is appropriate, and putting people in the right places to get things done well. But will this continue? Rather than trust completely, we propose that the university be visited again sooner, you see that in the report, than before the entire accreditation cycle is over. I will be happy to answer questions regarding the visit or the report from COA members. Do you want to introduce that?
Sorry. Thank you, Dr. Birdsell. We now invite the institutional representatives to briefly comment about the visit, and we remind you this is not a time to re-argue the team report.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to come before you today, in person this time, although I have to let you know it's very cold here. I wasn't expecting so cold from San Diego, where it was 80 yesterday. I want to thank Terry Clark and Dr. Birdsell, because without them, I don't think we could have managed this. And I also think it's very important for this commission to know the impact you're having on the entire institution. If I could briefly explain that, it'll take 30 seconds. When I became the provost in the early part of this year, I had all of these grand visions of what we were going to do and how we were going to change, and systems and processes I wanted to introduce, and key performance indicators, all kinds of good stuff. And the return visit happened within 3 weeks of me coming into my position. And everything was turned upside down, and we looked at each other and said, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Well, what we ended up doing was using this, I tried to argue it, I'll be honest. But then we said, okay, what are we going to do? What are we really going to do? And what we did was we leveraged this set of programs and what was being asked of us across the entire institution. And that's very, very important, because it has transformed our university. And it's something that WASC, our regional accreditor, is always telling us in the background, but they allow us to sort of determine that without a lot of particular specific guidance on exactly what to do, because each institution is different, and so that makes sense. And so what we've been able to do is to utilize this opportunity to get these programs where we wanted them to be, but also take this opportunity and do the same thing across all of the rest of our programs. In business, our Masters of Education program, our nursing programs. I don't know if you've heard, but we had 3 accreditors come visit us in the month of September. We saved the very best for last with this team. We hosted a WASC visit in the first week of September. We hosted the nursing accreditation site team the very following Monday. And then we hosted the teaching credential team at the end of the month. And I believe that this has completely transformed our institution. And so I humbly will say thank you for making us go through this process, because we needed to, not just for these programs, but for our entire university.
Yeah, and if I could add, I always felt that we did good work in terms of preparing quality candidates for teaching. However, and then we had great data, but I think what we were missing is the process. What do we do with it? And the continual process of improvement, which was missing. It was documented in certain areas, but it lacked structure and consistency, and I think going through the process really helped us to do that. I think we did a great job of keeping different data and forms and tracking and all of that, but it was not getting us to improvement. So for me, it was a learning experience, and I think we're a better institution because we went through it. So I really appreciate the work that was done by the ladies, and also I think what really helped is that our data, we were able to communicate it electronically for the most part before the visit. And then what we weren't sure fit, we put it in a separate, we called it our 0 file, right? We kept that, and it had a lot of nuggets in there that were really helpful. So I think that helped a lot. And then again, of course, as Joe says, the proof is in the pudding. It's to interview and talk to the people and verify it and all of that. But I agree we're a much better institution for having gone through it, and we'll run a tighter ship because of it.
Great, thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from any committee member? Committee Member Erickson.
Congratulations on all of your hard work. I was wondering if you could describe for us, or maybe Joe, this is your piece, what you saw that the data was being analyzed and used to make informed decisions about continuous improvement for the programs and the candidates.
Because we didn't do program standards, we just did common standards, but I do have an example of both. So one was a diagram that had been sent to us about their assessment system that looked similar to, for those of us of a certain age, if you took off the back of a television and you saw all those wires running all over there, right? Is that about right what it looked like? And I was like, they don't even have this many people at the university to have this many wires. By the time we got there, it was very sleek, and it was understood how program data would inform larger unit data and all the way to the president, to the provost, and to the president. And we talked about that. And so even the faculty that have participated in some of the smaller committees were saying, we better understand how this is going to work now. So that was one larger common standard issue. Another one was the way the part-time faculty talked about how feedback from candidates is used to help improve the courses. And this is kind of what led to that day-long retreat, because there had been some feedback about, we seem to be covering the same TPEs over and over again, but some are being left out. So the provost just said, well, let's get everybody in the same room, put up a big chart. By the way, they have the coolest walls that are blackboards in their building, and you can write all day on those. It's wonderful. Okay, so they wrote on the walls, is what I want to say, to make sure they had them in alignment. So that was an example of that. And then they have the systems in place to continue to gather data about TPA passing and moving forward with that to inform their instructional decisions.
Thank you. Committee Member Morrison.
I would just like to say congratulations as well. I remember back in the spring when we were here and we were interviewing you guys, I really felt sorry for you. And, there was new owners and 3 people doing 4 different jobs each. And I expected you all to resign the next day after you'd interviewed us. And then when I read the report, I just wanted to, congratulations and well done. You would take such an overhaul and take the recommendations and the stipulations so seriously and revamp your whole college. And especially now I'm hearing you're applying those principles to the other programs as well. Just well done.
Thank you. Anyone else? Committee Member Principal.
I also want to commend you. I think that the change is just amazing. I think the question about what to do with all that data is confusing to all of us. We all have the data, and what's the best thing to do and how do we deal with it? So I heard that you were going to use it in retreats and that you could write on the blackboards. So what are the actual structural mechanisms ongoing that you're going to use to analyze and apply that data?
One of the my associate provost, who's on vacation today, she and I worked together with input from our program director. When we designed our back of the TV diagram, what we needed to do was to see, where does the data start, where does it need to go and be analyzed, and then what happens to it after that, how does it flow. And my background is actually in the business disciplines, and so I use words like KPIs, key performance indicators, and effectiveness tools and things like that. But I am just dangerous enough in education because I did my doctorate at UCSD in their leadership program, in the EDD program. So what we needed to know was, where does the data start? What happens to it once we collect it, and then how do we disseminate it across the institution? Because we also need to be mindful that not only do we need to use data to be able to drive all our decision making and use evidence, but we also have to do it in a manner that is wholly adherent to shared governance principles. And so what we identified were, first of all, the data has to be in the academic side of the house, and then it needs to be delivered to the administrative side of the house. So in academics, the data will be collected by well, it is collected by our institutional researcher, delivered to a couple of different academic committees. One of them is a curriculum committee, which is typically comprised of our core faculty, our permanent faculty. We have program improvement committees, which we invite all of our part-time faculty to. And we also have assessment committees because we have a very, very focused assessment task force on program learning outcomes that we do for institutional assessment. From there, those reports flow in a lot of different directions depending on who needs to use them. But the point is that the data becomes transformed into a very usable type of report, which is going to be typically 2 to 3 pages. Every program in the institution will be delivering an annual performance report that is an aggregation of a year's worth of those kinds of data and committee minutes and decisions and that sort of thing. From there, though, what is so unique about being such a small institution is we can take those program reports and float them up to our Academic Affairs Strategic Planning Committee, who then disseminates the information to the Provost's office, but also to our president, our CFO, and our Board of Trustees, because we need to make sure that our Board of Trustees is active in understanding what we're doing and what the risks might be and where the opportunities lie. Because in that way, we can then inform marketing, finance, budget, what our needs are, and how to best support the programs moving forward. And it all goes all the way back to this data that we're collecting and compiling into usable reports.
Thank you. Committee Member Alvarado.
So I'm new to the committee, but I did read sort of the backstory, and congratulations. I do have a question with regards to Common Standard 1, where it notes that there's no systematic way of collaboratively engaging P12 partnerships. And the report does note that as a function of who your lecturers are, that's being addressed. But I wanted to know your thoughts on what happens should the makeup of your faculty change, and it's no longer a byproduct of who you're hiring, but is it more a part of the system that you have to make sure that you systematically engage P12? You see what I'm asking? It's more not by happenstance, but rather by design.
So if I can start first. So the word that kept coming up in my mind as I was working on this was ensure. So I didn't get to this, I mean, systematically is important, but this was, so the education unit ensures that faculty and instructional personnel, that was the word that kind of moved this over to the inconsistent part. And as you know, because it's small, you can ensure this now because you can call 5 people, but I'll turn it back over to them to talk about thinking about that on a bigger scale.
Right.
No, and I think if I understand your question correctly, we collaborate with our local partners at the school districts, right? And we meet with them annually. And I think the idea is that those meetings in the past were documented with agenda and minutes and that kind of thing. However, the change also occurs with our partners. So, we might have to, for example, in one case, I had to reestablish a new memorandum of understanding because there was an administrative superintendent change here, or there's a change in a HR director over here. So I think to the extent we do have, I think, local school districts that we consistently partner with. So I think if we formalize meetings and document those sessions and the kinds of alignments that we need to have with our districts and our teacher preparation program, that would be part of the structure that would assist with that, and formalize it, I guess is what I'm saying.
One of the ways that we ensure that, and this is the power of being small, our entire institution is completely tuned in 100% to what our mission is. And our mission is exactly compatible with the needs for diversity, both in our students and our faculty. And so one of our key performance indicators we'll be measuring every single year is, are we still in this program or in just a single subject or just a multiple subject? Are we in line with our mission? Because if we're not, we need to fix that right away. So part of our KPIs are going to be, what is the adherence to mission? Now, that does get into some more logistical nuts and bolts. We need to do a better job formalizing systematically the relationships that we have with our site schools, which we've had relationships with our districts for years, at least 10 years. And what we now have to do is kind of go to the big city. We're sort of the small town little neighbors where we've all grown up together, we kind of know each other, but we actually need to do a better job of systematically monitoring those relationships. But I would take you back to our mission, and we must stay true to our mission. And in a small place like us, I think that's a lot easier to do culturally within the institution than it is at a really large place. So.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Okay, this is an action item. If I can direct the committee members to look at page 3 and 4 of the report. This is a little bit lengthy motion. So what we're asking at this point is for removal of the stipulations and to approve full accreditation, which enables them to propose new credential programs, and that the next visit will be in 3 years. Is there a motion to approve that motion? Co-Chair Moore. So moved by Co-Chair Moore. Is there a second? So moved by Committee Member Riggs. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passed unanimously. Congratulations. We want to thank Dr. Birksell, Dr. Newman, Dr. Curio, and Ms. Clark. Thanks again very much. Well deserved. A lot of good work. Thank you. It looks like a lunch at this point. We are way ahead of schedule. We can move to item 16. Cheryl, are we okay on 16? We good? All right, 16 is discussion change or the changes to the accreditation handbook. This item will be presented by Administrator Cheryl Hickey. Ms. Hickey, will you please begin?
Sure. I put this item on your agenda, but wasn't sure I'd have the specifics yet, and I don't. But what I can tell you is that, so when the commission changed and made all the recent changes to the accreditation system, it affects our ability to recoup the extraordinary fees. Because the language in the regulations for extraordinary fees refers to the old system, biennial reports, late documents related to program assessment, and so we needed to update those regulations. So the commission approved moving forward with the regulatory process. The package went to the Office of Administrative Law and then screeched to a halt over there. So part of their issue, and this is sometimes the luck of the draw as to which attorney you get and how specific they want information, and some of it is what it is. So we have met with the Office of Administrative Law, and because the regulations references the accreditation handbook in many spots, because we talk about program review, we talk about program common standards review, things like that. They started delving into the accreditation handbook. So you have attorneys at the Office of Administrative Law saying this isn't clear and that's not clear and this isn't clear. Well, of course, they don't understand the accreditation system because it's not what they do. So we met with them, and there's really several issues. Some are terminology. So they pointed out areas where they find the language to be extremely vague. For you all, you would understand this language, right? So some of the things that our accreditation handbook has, things like sufficient progress, because you all have a lot of flexibility to determine whether an institution has made sufficient progress. Things like inadequate evidence, things like in a timely manner. So those phrases caught their attention and wanted us to define every time those kinds of language were presented. So we had a nice discussion, and I kind of had to give her very specific examples. So I would pull a lot of examples out of And she understood. I see why you say it that way, but I still needed to be more specific. So the other issue was related to necessity. And so with some of the fees, we have to give them a better reason as to why we came up with the fee that we actually did, the actual dollar amount. And I think that's actually very doable. And the other issue that they said was authority. So where's your authority to do that? So we finally were able to pull out some ed code language that talked about the accreditation system needing to be flexible and broad. And I think that helped a little bit, and we'll reference that everywhere we possibly can in our response to them. But what that means now is that we'll have to bring to you Catherine Polster from our office has been working on this issue. She is now doing regulations for our division. She's out until the end of the year, but she has given me where she thinks that all the changes need to take place. So I just got that package on Monday or Tuesday of this week, and so I'm going to be working over the next few weeks to kind of see what we can do without tying your hands when it comes to accreditation. That's the thing I'm worried about is that when we define things, we also don't want to get in trouble and not give you the flexibility you need. So fortunately, the attorney has made herself completely available. She said she'd read previous, additional versions and that kind of thing, and give some feedback to us. So I'm trying to convince her that we really do need flexibility, and that's what the intent in the system is. So we will continue to move forward. What it means is we have to approve it in February in order, our timeline, there's certain very rigorous timelines that they have to follow with regulatory process. If we don't have a package approved by April, we have to start all over again with the regulatory process. So we have to approve something in February, and I'm hoping to have a full package for you then, but there's no way I could have gotten it done between last week and today. So, but I wanted to give you the heads up and tell you what the issues were. We did talk, and Catherine, I'm going to pull you out here. We did have a kind of an aside. Is it really worth it for these extraordinary fees? I think it's a reasonable conversation because it's not a lot of money. We're not talking about the annual accreditation fees, which is the bigger pot of money, but it's about those late fees. It's about the initial institutional approval for brand new institutions, and it's about initial program approval for new institutions. And there is an aspect of at least the late fee, which is really an extraordinary fee. Yes, that it is an incentive for some institutions to get it in. So it has been effective in that way, even though, we're not bringing in tons of money. I'd rather get the documents rather than the fees. So I think it is worth it, but at the same time, it's a whole lot of work that we need to do for not a lot of money. But so it'll be a challenge trying to figure out the right mix of language in the handbook so that it doesn't tie your hands or change what you get to do, because you are given a lot more flexibility, I think, than she's comfortable with, but that's because she's in the regulatory world. So, not wanting to define time in a timely manner every time as being a certain number of days, because it really depends, So that's that item. Any questions on that? Yeah, Deborah.
Do we need to think about a mid-phone meeting for you, like January, so that we have a chance to talk about it before we vote on it?
I hadn't thought about that.
It would still be Bagley-Keene.
Would still be Bagley-Keene. Okay. Yeah, exactly. That's not a bad idea, actually. Would other people be willing to do that? Okay. Great. So let me throw out a doodle poll to all of you, and that's a great idea. Thank you. That'd be really helpful.
I think it would be helpful for clarification, Terry and Cheryl. The current regulations that we have in place, some of the language, it makes the regulation meaningless because there's no program assessment. But there's parts of the regulation that have remained intact, like you alluded to earlier in regard to if we have to do a full review because we didn't get adequate information on a program prior to the visit, that those regulations remain intact until they're not. Okay.
Right. Very true. Okay. All right, great. Then
Committee Member Borges.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Item 20? Okay.
Okay, so just a reminder, this was not an action item, so no action is needed this time. Thank you.
Okay,
Sure appreciate it.
All right, I'll send a doodle poll out. We'll see when and if we can get a quorum to meet, probably early January of some sort.
Should 20 be put at the end of the meeting, the election? Or can we go? She wanted to make a motion about, yeah,
Entirely up to you.
doesn't, I guess, sure, we'll accept the motion. Yeah, I think let Cheryl do this.
Oh, shoot. Hold on a second. Yes, I got to find it because I wasn't ready for that item. All right. Yes. So I can do that one. So we've moved to 20, apparently. So the COA's procedure manual calls for the nomination and elections to take place at the last meeting of the year. The language doesn't specify a calendar year or an academic year, so we may want to look at that in the future. But we've been interpreting this language as the last meeting of the academic or fiscal year. However, we were unable to hold the elections in June and August, being a teleconference meeting was not conducive to requesting nominations and holding an election for co-chairs. So we're doing it today. Again, we might want to think about the timing of this and revise the COA procedures manual if there's a desire to do this. So the process is such. I will open the nominations first for the K-12 co-chair position, and once I have as many names that are nominated, I will then close the nomination and ask for a motion and a second. I will then ask each nomination to make a statement should they desire to do so, and then we'll vote upon it as a body, and then I'll open it up for the post-secondary co-chair position, and we'll follow the same process. So the nominees must be agreeable to serving, so you can't nominate somebody who doesn't want to serve. And all members of the COA are eligible to serve as co-chair. As you know, Pia Wong, one of the most recent co-chairs, is no longer on the COA, so obviously she's not eligible. In addition, Anna Moore, the other COA co-chair, has served 2 one-year terms. And as the item states, Section 202 of the Procedures Manual states that no member of the committee shall be elected to the office of co-chair for more than 2 one-year terms. However, should the COA desire to elect any member beyond the 2 one-year terms, it takes a majority vote to suspend the Procedures Manual, and then we'll vote on the position. So, any questions about the process? No? Okay. So I now open the nominations for the K-12 co-chair position. Do I have any nominations? Suzanne.
That would be Anna Moore as K-12, right?
Mm-hmm.
I say that we waive the restriction for the 2 years, and I would nominate Anna for another year.
Okay. Do we have any more nominations? Oh, second. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's a good idea. Second. Sorry. Okay. Okay. Any other nominations? All right, I'll close the nominations then. So the first motion we need then, so you've motioned and seconded to waive the procedures manual. Do I have a vote on that, please? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Okay, so you're waiving your procedures manual, and now we're voting on re-electing Anna Moore. And all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Great. Congratulations. And I didn't even let you make a statement. I'm sorry. So now let me open the post-secondary position. Do I have any nominations? Anna?
I'd like to nominate Bob.
Anna. We have one nomination and a second. All righty. Any other nominations? Okay, I close the nominations. All those in favor of electing Bob Frelly as your post-secondary co-chair, say aye. All those opposed? All right, congratulations, Bob. You guys have, and would you guys both like to say something?
I'm actually touched. This is really wonderful. Very excited to continue this work for another year with Dr. Felly. It's an honor and a privilege to be the co-chair for this committee. I love the work. I sat with Cheryl yesterday to have a discussion about some other things, and I had this passionate moment where I said, I love accreditation because how it pushes institutions to really take a look at what they're doing. With this, we make the assumption that everybody wants to improve. We know they do, and we provide them with that third point and the tools to take a look at what they're doing and continue to move forward and do what's best for the students of California. So I'm happy to continue the work in this position for one more year. Thank you.
Thank you humbly for your vote of confidence. A lot of people have come through this position, and I've learned so much from you on the committee and also from those who have been the chairing, so I really appreciate your vote of confidence. When I mention the word accreditation to so many colleagues, their eyes start to glaze over, right? And I have to admit, before I started to get involved with the CTC a number of years ago as a program reviewer, that was kind of my initial thought, especially coming from the music field. We don't think about accreditation much. But it is such an important work, and I really respect everybody around the table, and I learned from everybody here, and I'm really looking forward to another great year. So thanks, folks.
I just am so grateful to have people in this position who love it. Honestly, I mean, I can just tell you all the time, love doing this, and I don't like doing that, you know. And so I've never wanted to be a co-chair, and I love not having to think about the stuff that you have to think of, and you're multitasking because you're also still very much participating in the decision making in addition to guiding the whole thing. So I couldn't do it, and I just am glad that I can sit here and just think and not have to worry. So thank you. I can't even.
Okay. So we are on to item 16. Does that work? 17. Yeah, we're at 17. Okay, great. 17 is an update and discussion of the annual data system. Director Terry Clark will present this information. Ms. Clark, will you please begin?
Yes. This is an exciting time in the world, and I'm really glad, Nicole, you're here again. Excellent, because Nicole is going to join my accreditation data system team. So a number of you have been working on this topic also. This agenda item provides some links back to some earlier items that are really important because they identify the types of data elements and the information about the data system. We have control of this ADS now within our building, and we have an IT person who's working very closely with us on this. And so the contractors have finished their work. And so the basics are there. And so it's a brand new technology system that we're trying to get up and going the first time. New technology systems can be challenging. So one of the things we're doing is I'm holding Zoom meetings. And so every week I have a 1.5-hour Zoom meeting, and if anyone has trouble with this, I am walking them through it and helping them with the process. I have permissions in the system that I can identify unit heads and things like that, so when it gets stuck and we can't seem to get it work from their end, I'll actually go in and identify the person or whatever. And so we're trying to get a lot of information out there about what the different roles are in the system. And one of the challenges is the way the contractors built the system. There are some things we're not quite sure why they did it the way they did, but we're still trying to figure all these little things out. The different roles for institutions, they really have 4 roles within their institution to select. The unit head is defined at the beginning as the dean or the superintendent. That is who the unit head is. All of their information was preloaded as far as their email, and they were given a temporary password. And the first time they went in, they had to change that temporary password. At the commission, we do not know anyone's password. We cannot give you your password. If you forget it, you just have to go through the I forgot my login info. There are 2 delegate options at institutions that a dean or a superintendent could decide. I want to give some people these permissions. And between the program delegate and the security delegate, they in essence have all the unit head permissions. Currently, the security delegate is the person we're really trying to get onto the system because they can connect other people to the system, to the institution, and they can give people permissions in the system. So what we set up is this first 2-month period, we're just getting everyone into the system. And so that's what I've really been working on during the Zoom meetings. The program delegate has the ability to actually submit the program reports to the commission. That is the unit head's role, but they can delegate that to a program delegate. And the vast majority of people in the system will just have faculty staff permissions. That means they can view data for their institution once they are connected to the institution. And so until they're connected, they actually only see their name when they go in. They say hi, it says hi and their name. And we need to get connected to an institution. We are piloting the data collection, and we're having some interesting conversations with people. So originally, the timelines we set up was between now and the end of December, we want to get a whole bunch of the logins set up. Not that we won't be creating logins and getting people permissions later, but we want to get the majority done in this 2-month time frame. And then we were looking at January through April of 2018 as being the first data submission window. In talking with people at the Cal Council conference in October in San Diego, some of them were saying, April 1st, we're not going to have our data for 2018, 17-18 by April 1st. We're not talking about completer data, we're talking about enrollment totals. So we want to have a conversation with you guys today as for your institutions, when does it make sense that you would actually have enrollment information for that year? And one of the goals is the Title II world, it's a year and a half after the fact. And so we're trying to get a little more proactive and be in the year. So one institution, which has a number of entry windows, was saying maybe by May 15th, they would have actually enrollment totals. They're actually not even sure by May 15th if they would have final totals for the 17-18 year. So that's one of the things that would be really helpful to talk with you about as a group. We are going to be very flexible on this. The whole goal to this first year pilot is support them, support, and help and get it to work. So our goal this year is to not have anyone have any negative consequence for this or to be super frustrated with it. We'll just continue with Zoom meetings and we'll continue to move this forward. So what do you guys think about time frames for when data is available as far as how many people are enrolled in your programs? Yeah.
If you're not on the semester system, and most of us have our enrollment from fall to the end of summer, that means we don't have our entire data enrollment known until mid-July. In fact, Census Day isn't until August 1st. So if we truly are looking back towards the year, it would be due right before the new academic year starts, probably. Which for most of us, is there anybody else that everyone has a fall start? Oh, you don't have a fall start. To your academic year, though, when you... So would you then be able to include that in the year past?
Committee Member Alvarado.
So something else to think about is the personnel involved in this. And I'm thinking about the May 15th being where credential analysts are really neck deep in making recommendations. So that would not be a good time. I think July sounds much better. Yeah.
Committee Member Pensaval.
So I'm just wondering, based on what Committee Member Erickson said, what about programs that are like 2 years and have movement and have multiple starts, or are a year and a half? I mean, your numbers are kind of always changing. Will you get your best estimate, or how will that work?
You're going to have to give us your best estimate at all times, but we're not looking for total enrollment. We're looking for the new enrollment in that academic year. So in an induction program, for example, and people that are in year 2, we don't want to know about them as starters. We want to know who starts in that academic year. And then the later questions, when we're looking at the number of people that are completing, we're not talking about that year. We're talking about the appropriate number of years back. And it's going to depend on how long the program is to how many years back you have to go. So maybe July 1st is, so we cannot actually do it within the same year necessarily. I know we have it set up right now that you can't submit a report till all the reports are ready to be submitted. And so that's part of the trickiness. Okay, July 1st. There is a web page now for the annual data submission, and I'm not positive. Yes, it's right at the very beginning of the item. That web page was just put up in this past week. No, that web page is to the actual system. I think the web page isn't in this item. Yeah, I don't think the link to the web page is in here, but there is a web page now. And we will, when we send that email, we were told, do we send you the email to the web page for performance assessment development? We will add the ADS web page. Nope, that's the system. When you click on that, it takes you actually to the system. And my goal is to put more material on that web page kind of on a weekly basis as we're learning more and more about this system. And anyone who's been in the system yet, have any comments or thoughts? Has anyone been in the system yet? Good. Okay, good. Good. I have been there a number of, I've had 3 meetings, so far I've had 4.5 hours of Zoom meetings where I've been connecting people and moving things around and yeah, trying to get the system up and fully functional.
The notification of this system goes to, for county offices. Who gets this information initially?
Unit heads get it, but every time I ask staff to send something to unit heads, because I know that deans and superintendents are very, very busy people, I normally try to get an associate dean, a director of teacher ed, and the credential analyst, because the credential analysts are kind of my avenues that I figure the credential analyst will make sure somebody sees it. So that's kind of who we send it to always, and that's who got this information originally.
Any other comments, questions? Again, this information item, this is looking great. If you check that out, I think the data system is really working well. I like it. So again, thank you very much, Ms. Clark. We are getting up to the lunch hour. We looked at doing lunch at 11:30. We are well ahead of schedule. We have a time certain at 1 and 1:30. So, Shane?
Sure.
Okay, let's reconvene at 12:15, right? Enjoy your lunch.